The stars had never seemed so threatening before. Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the UEN Defiant, watching the viewport with growing unease. His crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and running diagnostics like any other day. But this was not any other day. 3 hours ago, something had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Something massive. The year was 2187 and humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 6 months earlier. It was supposed to be their greatest achievement. Scientists had celebrated in the streets. World leaders had made grand speeches about humanity's future among the stars. Now Minho wondered if that celebration had been premature. "Captain, the object is moving closer," said Lieutenant Borahan from the sensor station. Her voice was steady, but Minho could hear the fear underneath. "It's bigger than anything we've ever built." "Much bigger," Minho nodded slowly. "Keep tracking it. Send all data to Earth Command." The object had been detected by the Mars Orbital Station first. At that distance, they thought it might be an asteroid or a comet, but asteroids didn't move in straight lines. They didn't slow down as they approached planets. And they definitely didn't emit organized energy signatures. Within an hour, Earth's defense satellites got a better look. The images that came back made Minho's stomach turn. It wasn't one ship. It was 5. Each one was the size of a small city, covered in weapons and armor that gleamed like polished metal under the distant sun. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls decorated with symbols that humanity had never seen before. "We're not alone," Minho whispered to himself. The thought should have been exciting. Instead, it filled him with dread. The alien ships didn't attack. They simply stopped just beyond Earth's moon and waited. For 12 long hours, humanity watched and wondered. Military commanders argued about what to do. Scientists begged for a chance to make peaceful contact. Politicians worried about panic in the streets. Then the message came. It wasn't in any Earth language, but somehow everyone could understand it. The alien technology translated itself directly into human minds, and the words were clear and cold. "Primitive species of the third planet. I am Ambassador Velthar of the Drazen Imperium. Your recent use of faster-than-light travel has revealed your presence to the civilized galaxy. The Imperium has ruled over 400 star systems for 10,000 years. All intelligent species must acknowledge our authority and accept their place in the natural order." Minho felt his hands tighten into fists. The ambassador's tone wasn't diplomatic. It was the voice of someone speaking to insects. "You will surrender your planet's governance to the Imperium. Your military will be dissolved. Your people will serve the Empire as vassals. You have 90 days to prepare for integration. If you resist, your species will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation. This is the law of the galaxy." The message ended. The 5 alien ships remained motionless, waiting for humanity's answer like patient predators. The next 3 days were chaos. Earth's leaders met in emergency sessions. Military bases went to high alert. Some people panicked and fled to remote areas. Others insisted the message must be a hoax, some elaborate prank by a powerful hacker. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Humanity had reached for the stars and found monsters waiting there. Admiral Jiwoo Park was called out of retirement to take command of Earth's defense forces. She was 52 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had fought in the Mars colony wars 15 years ago, when rebel factions tried to break away from Earth. She knew what it meant to face impossible odds. On the 4th day after the message, she stood before Earth's military commanders in Geneva. The room was packed with generals, admirals, and ministers from every nation. Everyone looked tired and afraid. "Let me be clear," Jiwoo said, her voice cutting through the nervous chatter. "We have 47 warships. Most of them were built for system patrol, not combat. The aliens have 5 ships, and each one could probably destroy our entire fleet alone. And those 5 ships are just their ambassadors. They claim to control 400 star systems. If they decide to bring their full military here, we have no chance." A French general stood up. "Then we should surrender. Save billions of lives and become slaves," Jiwoo replied. "Make no mistake, that's what vassals means. We'll be servants to alien masters. Our children will grow up bowing to creatures that see us as beneath them. Better alive and bowing than dead," the general said. Jiwoo stared at him. "Is it? I'm not sure anymore." The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to surrender immediately. Others wanted to fight no matter the cost. A few suggested running, loading colony ships with as many people as possible, and fleeing to distant stars where the Drazen might never find them. President Lee of the United Earth Nations finally called for a vote. It was close, but the decision was made. Earth would refuse surrender. They would fight. Minho heard the news on the Defiant. His crew cheered, then fell silent as the reality sank in. They were going to war against an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. "Prepare the ship for combat operations," Minho ordered. His voice sounded stronger than he felt. "Check all weapons systems. I want damage control teams ready, and somebody find out if engineering can get more power to the shields." Young Ensign Daehyun approached him nervously. "Captain, do you think we can win?" Minho looked at the young man. He wanted to lie, to offer false hope. But his crew deserved the truth. "No," he said quietly, "but we're going to fight anyway. Because that's what humans do. We don't roll over when bullies threaten us, even if it costs us everything." Admiral Jiwoo took command of the defense fleet from the orbital station above Earth. She had 47 ships under her command, ranging from heavy cruisers to small patrol corvettes. It wasn't much, but it was all humanity had. She called her captains to a virtual meeting. Dozens of faces appeared on screens around her, officers from every nation on Earth united by a common enemy. "We have 87 days left," Jiwoo told them. "When that time is up, the Drazen will return with their full fleet. They'll expect us to surrender. When we don't, they'll try to destroy us. Our job is to make them pay for every inch of space, every ship they lose, and every day this war continues. We can't win, but we can make them remember us. We can make them regret the day they threatened Earth." The faces on the screens nodded, fear mixed with determination in their eyes. Minho returned to his quarters that night and looked at a picture of his family. His parents lived in Busan. His sister had 2 young children. He thought about them growing up as slaves to alien masters, and his resolve hardened. The Drazen had made a mistake. They thought humanity would fold easily, like all the other species they had conquered over 10,000 years. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't know about the stubborn pride that made people fight when fighting was hopeless. They didn't know about the fury that came from protecting loved ones. The Drazen Empire had commanded Earth to surrender. In 87 days they would learn humanity's answer, and it would be delivered in fire and steel. The clock was ticking. 73 days until the Drazen returned with their fleet. 73 days to prepare for a war that humanity couldn't win by conventional means. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, studying holographic displays of the solar system. Red markers showed known Drazen positions. Blue markers represented human forces. There was far too much red and not nearly enough blue. "We need to think differently," she said to the gathered officers. "The Drazen have better ships, better weapons, and thousands of years of experience. If we fight them the way they expect, we lose. Simple as that." Commander Hyeon Kim from Intelligence stepped forward. He was a thin man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Drazen message. The way they speak, the way they present themselves. They're proud, arrogant even. They believe they're superior to us in every way." "They probably are superior," muttered a general from the back. "In technology, yes," Hyun continued. "But I've reviewed historical databases from their transmission. In 10,000 years of conquest, they've never faced guerrilla warfare. Every species they've defeated either surrendered immediately or fought honorable fleet battles. Traditional warfare. They've never dealt with an enemy that refuses to play by the rules." Jiwoo's eyes narrowed with interest. "Go on." "They see themselves as noble warriors. There are references in their message structure to honor and proper conduct. They expect us to line up our ships and fight them properly." "What if we don't?" A heavy silence filled the room. "Traditional military doctrine said you met enemy fleets in open battle. You used formations and tactics refined over centuries. But traditional military doctrine was written by humans fighting other humans. You're suggesting we fight dirty," Jiwoo said slowly. "I'm suggesting we fight to win, Admiral. Any way we can." The next person to speak was someone nobody expected. Yuna Choi was only 28 years old, a civilian weapons engineer who had been invited to the meeting almost as an afterthought. She was small and quiet, the kind of person who usually got overlooked in rooms full of military brass. But when she spoke, her voice was clear. "We can't beat them with warships," Yuna said. "But we don't have to. We have something they don't expect. We have industry, mining operations, asteroid processing facilities. We've spent 100 years learning how to move massive rocks through space. What if we turned that expertise into a weapon? Admiral Jiwoo turned to her. Explain. Yuna pulled up a holographic display showing the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Thousands of rocks, some the size of mountains, drifted in their ancient orbits. The Dresden will bring warships, expensive, sophisticated vessels that took years to build. We can't match that, but we can turn asteroids into kinetic kill vehicles, rocks moving at high speed with explosive cores. We camouflage them as natural debris until the last moment, then guide them into enemy ships. Each impact would be like a nuclear explosion, but it costs us almost nothing to make. A naval captain shook his head. That's not how space combat works. Asteroids are too slow, too easy to detect and destroy. Not if we're smart about it, Yuna countered. We use the sun's gravity to accelerate them. We coat them in stealth materials developed for probe missions. We make thousands of them and mix them in with regular asteroid traffic. The Dresden can't shoot what they can't identify as a threat until it's too late. Jiwoo studied the young engineer with new respect. How quickly can we build these weapons? With full industrial support? We could have 500 ready in 60 days. 2,000 if we push harder. Do it, Jiwoo ordered. Whatever resources you need, you get them. The plan began to take shape. Earth's massive industrial complex, built to support colonies throughout the solar system, was retooled for war. Mining ships became weapons platforms. Cargo haulers were fitted with missile pods. Even civilian transports were modified to carry combat drones. Captain Min-Ho Kang found himself assigned to a new task force. His job was to train pilots in hit-and-run tactics. No more honorable fleet engagements, no more holding formation. Human ships would strike fast from unexpected angles, then vanish into the darkness before the enemy could respond. Forget everything you learned in the academy, Min-Ho told a room full of pilots. The Dresden expect us to fight with honor. They expect formations and formal engagements. We're going to give them chaos instead. We're going to be ghosts, shadows. By the time they realize we're attacking, we'll already be gone. One young pilot raised his hand. His name was Taeyang-Oh, barely 24 years old, with more confidence than experience. Sir, isn't that cowardly? Shouldn't we face them directly? Minho fixed him with a hard stare. Cowardice is letting your planet get conquered because you were too proud to fight smart. The Dresden want to make our families slaves. I don't care if we have to hide behind every rock in the solar system. We use every advantage we have. Taeyang nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Meanwhile, Dr. Suji Yoon worked in a small laboratory, analyzing every scrap of data from the Dresden transmission. She was a xenobiologist, one of the few humans who had spent years imagining what alien life might be like. Now that imagination was crucial. Their communication patterns show rigid hierarchy, Suji explained to Hyun Kim during a late-night meeting. Every phrase follows formal structure. They're not just proud, they're locked into a way of thinking, a cultural code that probably governs every aspect of their society. Can we exploit that? Hyun asked. Maybe. If their military follows the same rigid patterns, they might struggle to adapt when things don't go according to their expectations. Rigid thinking is strong when everything goes to plan, but brittle when chaos enters the equation. Hyun smiled grimly. Then let's give them chaos. The work continued around the clock. Yuna's asteroid bombs were hollowed out and filled with fusion explosives. Special guidance systems were installed, hidden deep within the rock so they couldn't be detected by casual scans. Each asteroid was carefully positioned along routes where Dresden ships might travel. Earth's small fleet of warships was modified too. Engineers stripped out crew quarters to make room for more missiles. They added experimental shield generators that could redirect energy in unpredictable patterns. Every ship became a test bed for desperate innovations. Admiral Jiwoo pushed everyone harder. She knew that even with all their preparations, the odds were terrible. But she also knew something the Dresden didn't understand. Humans were at their most dangerous when backed into a corner. 40 days before the deadline, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A team of hackers who called themselves the Shadow Collective contacted the military. They had been analyzing the Dresden transmission from a different angle. We think we can build a virus, their leader explained via encrypted channel, something that can infect their computer systems. We don't know if it will work, but if we can get it into their network, we might be able to disrupt their coordination. Yuna was brought in to work with them. Between the hackers' software expertise and her understanding of weapon systems, They began creating something new. A digital plague designed for alien computers. It was a long shot, but at this point humanity needed every long shot they could find. Minho spent his days training pilots and his nights worrying. He knew what they were planning was dangerous, borderline insane, hit-and-run attacks against superior forces, asteroid bombs that might or might not work, a virus that might or might not be compatible with alien technology. But he also saw the determination in his crew's eyes. Humanity had been peaceful for decades, focused on exploration and building rather than fighting. But that didn't mean they had forgotten how to fight. It just meant they had been waiting for a good enough reason. Protecting their home from alien slavers was a good enough reason. 20 days before the deadline, Admiral Jiwoo called another meeting. Every major military leader was present, along with engineers, scientists, and intelligence officers. The plan was as complete as it could be. "We're not going to win by destroying their fleet," Jiwoo said bluntly. "We're going to win by making victory too expensive. We make them bleed for every meter of space. We make them fear the darkness between planets because they don't know what's hiding there. We make them regret the day they chose Earth as their target." She paused, looking at each person in the room. "They think we're primitive, weak, easy prey. Let's teach them what happens when you threaten a species that has nothing left to lose." The room erupted in determined voices. For the first time since the Drazen arrived, Minho felt something other than fear. He felt hope. Not hope for victory exactly, but hope that humanity would make the galaxy remember them. The Drazen had commanded Earth to surrender. In 20 days they would return expecting submission. Instead they would find defiance. And humanity's answer would be written in fire across the stars. The 90 days were up. The Drazen had returned and they had brought death with them. Captain Minho Kang watched his tactical display with a sick feeling in his stomach. 300 warships had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of metal fish swimming through the void. Each ship bristled with weapons that could turn planets into ash. "Contact from the Drazen flagship," reported Lieutenant Borahan. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." "Ignore it," Minho replied. His voice was steady despite the fear racing through his veins. "All ships move to designated scatter positions. Execute Plan Chaos on my mark." Around Earth and throughout the inner solar system, 47 human warships began moving in different directions. There was no formation, no battle line. Each ship headed for a different location as if the fleet was falling apart in panic. On the Drazen flagship, Commander Vorak watched the human ships scatter with contempt. He was a veteran of 50 conquests, and this was always the moment he enjoyed most. The moment when inferior species realized their mistake and tried to run. "Pursue them," Vorak ordered. "Split the fleet into hunting groups. Destroy any ship that refuses to surrender." It was exactly what Admiral Jiwoo Park had hoped he would do. From her command post on the moon, Jiwoo watched as the Drazen fleet broke formation. 300 ships splitting into smaller groups, each chasing a different human vessel. The tight, coordinated formation that made them so powerful was fragmenting. "Now," Jiwoo said quietly. Throughout the solar system, the trap was sprung. Minho's ship, the Defiant, was being chased by 6 Drazen cruisers. They were faster than him, their weapons more powerful. By every measure, he should have been running scared. Instead, he led them exactly where he wanted them to go. "Approaching the asteroid field," reported his navigator. "The heavy rocks, just like we planned." "Good," Minho said. "Active stealth systems. Make us look like debris." The Defiant dove into a dense cluster of asteroids. To the Drazen sensors, the human ship's energy signature suddenly matched the rocks around it. The 6 pursuing ships slowed, scanning the area carefully. They knew the humans were hiding, but which rock were they behind? "Now, Yuna," Minho whispered. Even though the weapons engineer was millions of kilometers away, Yuna Choi sat in a control room on Mars, her hands flying across holographic controls. Around the solar system, 500 asteroid bombs that had been positioned over the past months suddenly came to life. Tiny engines fired, adjusting their courses. Stealth coating made them nearly invisible against the background of space. The 6 Drazen ships searching for the Defiant never saw it coming. 3 asteroid bombs, each the size of an office building and moving at tremendous speed, slammed into the enemy vessels. The fusion explosives inside detonated on impact. The explosions lit up the darkness like new suns being born. When the light faded, the 6 Drazen ships were gone. Just debris and expanding clouds of superheated gas. "Target destroyed," reported Borahan, her voice shaking with amazement. "All 6 ships, complete destruction." Similar scenes played out across the solar system. Drazen ships that had split up to hunt humans found themselves ambushed by weapons they never expected. Asteroid bombs struck without warning. Small human attack drones swarmed from hiding spots in the wreckage of old satellites. Mining ships modified into kamikaze vessels rammed enemy cruisers at full speed. Commander Vorak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than an hour, he had lost 41 ships. 41 vessels that had survived countless battles, destroyed by primitives using rocks and suicidal tactics. "This is not honorable combat," Vorak growled. "They fight like cowards, like insects." "Should we regroup?" asked his second officer. Vorak's pride wouldn't allow retreat. "No, they cannot sustain this. They will run out of tricks. Press the attack." But the humans had plenty of tricks left. Young pilot Taeyang-O led a squadron of 12 small fighters on what should have been a suicide mission. Their target was a Drazen supply convoy that had been detected bringing ammunition and fuel to the main fleet. "Stay low and fast," Taeyang told his squadron. "We hit them and vanish before they know what happened." The squadron used the gravity of Jupiter to slingshot themselves at incredible speed toward the convoy. They came in from the direction of the sun, making themselves hard to see against the bright light. The Drazen escorts never detected them until missiles were already in the air. Taeyang's fighter shook as he fired everything he had. The convoy ships were lightly armored, meant to carry supplies rather than fight battles. The human missiles tore through them like paper. Explosions rippled across the convoy as fuel tanks ruptured and ammunition cooked off. "Break and scatter," Taeyang ordered. "Don't give them a target." His squadron split in 12 directions. The Drazen escorts tried to pursue, but they couldn't chase everyone at once. Within minutes, the human fighters had vanished into the vastness of space. Behind them, the burning wreckage of the supply convoy drifted uselessly. Admiral Jiwoo received the reports and allowed herself a small smile. The battle was going better than expected. Humanity had lost 23 ships, which hurt terribly, but the Drazen had lost 41. For the first time in the war, humans were winning the exchange. "They're regrouping," reported Hyun Kim from intelligence. "The Drazen fleet is pulling back together into a defensive formation. They're scared." "Good," Jiwoo said. "Fear makes people make mistakes. What's the status of our special weapon?" "Yuna says it's ready, but we only get one shot at this." Jiwoo nodded. "Then we make it count." Deep in the asteroid belt, a single, modified cargo ship drifted among the rocks. It looked like any other piece of space junk, scarred and damaged from years of hard use. The Drazen sensors passed over it without interest. They were looking for warships and military targets, not garbage. But this piece of garbage had teeth. Captain Minho had volunteered to command the ship. His regular crew had protested, but he insisted on leading this mission personally. Inside the cargo hold, Yuna's masterpiece waited. A single massive bomb, larger than any asteroid weapon. This one wasn't meant to destroy a ship. It was meant to destroy an entire fleet. "We're in position," Minho reported on a tight beam transmission. "The Drazen flagship is 300 kilometers away, right in the center of their formation." "Confirmed," Jiwoo replied. "You're authorized to proceed, and Minho, good luck." Minho smiled. "We're way past luck, Admiral. We're running on spite now." He cut the transmission and looked at his small crew. Just 5 people, all volunteers who knew this was likely a one-way trip. They looked back at him with calm determination. "Engine power to maximum," Minho ordered. "All stealth systems offline. Full burn straight at the flagship." The cargo ship suddenly roared to life. Its engines flared bright as it accelerated directly toward the center of the Drazen formation. Alarm screamed on every enemy ship as the threat was detected. Destroy that vessel, Commander Vorak ordered. All batteries fire. Energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked toward the cargo ship. But Minho was flying like a man possessed, dodging and weaving through the incoming fire. His ship took hits, armor melting and systems failing, but he kept going. 200 kilometers. 100. 50. They're launching fighters to intercept, reported his navigator. We can't make it to the flagship. We don't need to, Minho replied. We just need to get close enough. 25 kilometers from the Drazen flagship, with his ship falling apart around him and enemy fighters closing in, Minho hit the detonation switch. The bomb in the cargo hold was special. Yuna had designed it not just to explode, but to create a massive electromagnetic pulse. When it detonated, a wave of energy expanded outward at the speed of light. Every electronic system it touched overloaded and burned out. The Drazen flagship went dark first. Then the ships around it, dozens of vessels suddenly dead in space, their sophisticated systems fried beyond repair. The wave kept expanding, catching ship after ship. By the time it faded, nearly 80 Drazen vessels were drifting helplessly, their crews trapped inside metal coffins. Admiral Jiwoo saw the flash of the explosion from the moon and closed her eyes. Minho was gone, but he had given humanity a chance. All ships, she broadcast to the human fleet. The enemy is crippled. Attack now. Make them regret the day they came to our solar system. The remaining human warships fell upon the disabled Drazen vessels like wolves on wounded prey. It wasn't honorable. It wasn't fair. But it was effective. Commander Vorak, aboard a ship that had survived the pulse by being far from the blast, made a decision that had never been made before in 10,000 years of Drazen conquest. Retreat, he ordered quietly. All functional ships jump to hyperspace. We withdraw. The remaining Drazen ships fled into faster-than-light travel, leaving their dead and disabled vessels behind. Humanity had won its first battle. The cost had been terrible, but they had proven something important. They had proven they could make the Empire bleed. 3 months had passed since humanity's first victory. The celebrations had been brief because everyone knew the truth. The Drazen Empire would return, and next time they would bring overwhelming force. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood in the war room, looking older and more tired than before. The first battle had cost them 23 ships. Earth's defense fleet now numbered only 19 operational warships. Against what was coming, it would not be enough. Intelligence reports confirmed, Commander Hyun Kim said grimly. The Drazen are assembling a massive fleet. 800 warships from across their empire. They're also forcing their vassal species to contribute ships. This will be the largest invasion force they've ever deployed. A heavy silence fell over the room. 800 ships against 19. The mathematics were brutal and simple. We can't win this, said a general quietly. Not with conventional tactics. Not with anything we have. No, Jiwoo agreed. But we can make them bleed. We can make them remember us. And maybe, just maybe, we can inspire others to rise up. Hyun stepped forward with new information. Admiral, we've been intercepting Drazen communications. They're not as secure as they think they are. We've found something interesting. The vassal species, the ones being forced to send ships, many of them are watching us. Watching us? Jiwoo asked. Our victory spread through their communication networks. For the first time in thousands of years, someone stood up to the Drazen and won. It's causing problems for the Empire. Some vassals are dragging their feet, delaying their ship deployments. A few are even talking about rebellion, though only in whispers. Dr. Suji Yoon, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. The Drazen rule through fear and the belief that resistance is hopeless. We just proved resistance is possible. Even if we lose, we've already damaged them in ways they don't understand yet. Jiwoo nodded slowly. Then we need to hurt them more. We need to make such a mess of this invasion that every vassal species in the galaxy sees the Empire can be challenged. Over the next weeks, Earth prepared for the coming storm. Resources were nearly exhausted. The asteroid bombs had all been used in the first battle. New weapons had to be improvised from whatever materials remained. Yuna Choi worked day and night on a new project. She had been studying captured Drazen technology from the disabled ships left behind in the first battle. Their computers were sophisticated, but they all connected to a central coordination network. a command hub that kept the massive fleet synchronized. If we can take out their coordination hub, Yuna explained to Admiral Jiwoo, their fleet will fall into chaos. Each ship will have to act independently. They're not trained for that. Their entire doctrine assumes the central command is always there. Where is this hub? Jiwoo asked. That's the problem. It's mobile, a massive command station that moves with their main fleet. It'll be heavily defended. Can you build something to destroy it? Yuna hesitated. I can build a virus, something that will spread through their network and burn out their systems. But getting it into the hub means someone has to get close. Really close. Close enough to physically upload it. Jiwoo understood what that meant. A suicide mission. Probably, Yuna admitted quietly. Meanwhile, Earth's population prepared for the worst. Bunkers were reinforced. Emergency supplies stockpiled. Parents held their children tighter at night. Everyone knew the next battle might be the last. Young pilot Taeyang-Oh had been promoted after his success in the first battle. He now commanded his own squadron of 12 fighters. They were some of the last combat-capable craft humanity had left. We're going to die, aren't we? Asked one of his pilots during a briefing. Taeyang looked at the young woman. She was barely 20 years old, fresh from the academy. Probably, he said honestly, but we're going to make it count. Every second we delay them, every ship we damage, it gives Earth more time. It gives people a chance to evacuate. It matters. The young pilot nodded, accepting her fate with quiet courage. Hyun Kim brought more intelligence reports to Admiral Jiwoo. The Drazen are making an example of their vassals. 3 species that showed reluctance to contribute ships have been punished. Entire colonies destroyed. They're trying to remind everyone what happens when you defy the Empire. It's backfiring, Soo Ji-yoon noted. We're seeing increased chatter in the vassal communication networks. Fear is mixing with anger. The Empire is creating exactly the conditions for rebellion by being so brutal. But rebellion takes time, Jiwoo said. We need help now and it's not coming. We stand alone. The Drazen fleet arrived on a cold Tuesday morning. 800 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, filling the sky with their presence. They moved cautiously this time, staying together in tight formation. Commander Vorak had learned from his mistakes. Primitive humans. Vorak's message boomed across all frequencies. Your resistance in the previous battle was noted. But it changes nothing. Surrender now or watch your planet burn. You have 1 hour to respond. Admiral Jiwoo sat in her command center, surrounded by displays showing the massive enemy fleet. 19 ships against 800. It was madness to even try. But surrender meant slavery for all humanity. The choice was simple, really. Send a message back, Jiwoo ordered. Tell them Earth's answer is the same as before. We refuse. The hour passed in tense silence. Then the Drazen fleet began moving toward Earth. All ships, Jiwoo broadcast. Execute planned sacrifice. Make every second count. The 19 human warships didn't try to fight as a fleet. Instead, they scattered in different directions, each one carrying a specific mission. Some headed for the outer system to act as scouts and guerrilla fighters. Others moved to intercept Drazen supply lines. A few stayed near Earth to defend to the last, but one ship had a special mission. It was an old frigate, barely combat-worthy, patched together from spare parts. Captain Minho would have been proud of it. The volunteer crew had named it the Defiant II in honor of the captain who died in the first battle. Commander Bora Han stood on its bridge. She had been Minho's tactical officer before, and now she carried on his legacy. In her cargo hold was Yuna's virus ready to upload into the Drazen command hub. We just have to get through 800 warships, Bora said dryly. Simple, really. Her crew laughed nervously. They all knew the odds, but they also knew what was at stake. The Drazen fleet approached Earth like a slow-moving storm. They were careful this time, scanning for asteroid bombs and hidden weapons. They moved in tight formation, protecting each other. They had learned to respect human trickery, Taeyang. O led his squadron in a desperate attack on the fleet's outer edge. 12 tiny fighters against hundreds of massive warships. It should have been suicide. It was suicide. But they managed to destroy 2 Drazen cruisers and damage 3 more before being forced to retreat. 8 of Taeyang's pilots didn't make it back. Across the solar system, the remaining human ships fought with desperate courage. They struck from hiding, used every trick they knew, made the Drazen pay for every meter of advance. But there were just too many enemy ships. Admiral Jiwoo watched helplessly as her fleet was slowly destroyed. 18 ships left. then 15, then 12. Each loss hurt like losing a piece of her soul. Bora is making her run, reported Hyun Kim. The Defiant 2 is heading for the command hub. Jiwoo leaned forward, watching the tactical display. This was their last chance. If Bora failed, Earth would fall. The Defiant 2 burned at maximum speed toward the center of the Drazen formation. Every weapon on dozens of ships fired at it. Bora dodged and weaved, her ship taking hits but staying in motion. Her crew worked frantically to keep systems running as they burned out and exploded around them. "We're not going to make it," her navigator said. "Too much damage. Engines are failing." Bora looked at the distance remaining. They were still 10 kilometers from the hub. So close, but the ship was dying around them. Then Taeyang's voice came over the radio. "Defiant 2, this is Fighter Squadron 7, we've got your back." 4 fighters, all that remained of Taeyang's squadron, screamed out of the darkness. They positioned themselves between the Defiant 2 and the incoming fire, using their small ships as shields for the larger vessel. "What are you doing?" Bora demanded. "You'll be killed. Somebody has to get that virus uploaded," Taeyang replied calmly. "Make it count, Commander." His fighters were torn apart by Drazen weapons within seconds. But those seconds were enough. The Defiant 2, battered and burning, reached the command hub and slammed into its hull. Bora hit the upload button with her last act before the ship exploded. The virus flooded into the Drazen network like poison through veins. Commander Vorak was giving orders when suddenly every screen on his flagship went dark. Then across the fleet, hundreds of ships reported the same thing. The coordination network was down. Ships were isolated, unable to communicate with Fleet Command. "What is happening?" Vorak roared. His technical officer stared at failing systems in horror. "Sir, their virus is spreading through our entire network. It's burning out coordination systems across the fleet. We're losing control." Across the galaxy, vassal species monitoring the battle saw their chance. The Drazen fleet was in chaos. The mighty empire was vulnerable. On the planet Kelros, enslaved for 2,000 years, people looked at each other and nodded. The uprising began within hours. The silence after the battle was strange. For months, humanity had lived with the constant threat of extinction. Now suddenly the enemy was gone. The Drazen fleet had jumped to hyperspace, fleeing back to their own territory to deal with the rebellion spreading through their empire. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood alone in the war room, looking at the tactical displays. Of Earth's 47 original warships, only 4 remained operational. The cost had been staggering. Over 30,000 crew members dead. Captain Min-ho Kang, Commander Bora Han, young pilot Taeyang Oh. So many brave souls lost. But Earth still stood. Humanity had survived. The door opened and Commander Hyun Kim entered. He looked exhausted but carried new intelligence reports. "Admiral, you need to see this. The galaxy is on fire." He pulled up holographic displays showing star systems across the Drazen Empire. Red markers indicated rebellions and uprisings. There were hundreds of them. 3 major vassal species have declared independence, Jan explained. The Kelrosians, Tarvans, and Belthari. They're forming what they're calling the Coalition of Free Worlds. Dozens of smaller species are joining them. The Empire is fracturing. Jiwoo studied the displays with amazement. "All of this because we refused to surrender?" "You inspired them, Admiral. You showed the galaxy that the Drazen could be beaten. That resistance wasn't suicide. Now everyone who's been enslaved for centuries is rising up at once. The Empire can't fight rebellions on 100 worlds simultaneously." Dr. Soo Ji-yoon entered the room carrying her own reports. "I've been analyzing the vassal communications. The story of Earth's resistance has spread everywhere. Songs are being written about Minho's sacrifice, poems about humanity's courage. We've become a symbol of freedom across the galaxy." Jiwoo felt overwhelmed. They had just been trying to survive. She never imagined they would spark a galactic revolution. Over the next weeks, Earth began to rebuild. Ships were repaired, new weapons manufactured. But this time they weren't alone. Messages started arriving from the new coalition of free worlds. Offers of alliance, shared technology, military support. The Kelrosians, an insectoid species that had been enslaved for 2,000 years, sent their fleet commander to meet with Jiwoo. His name was Tikrik, and he spoke through a translation device in clicking sounds that became words. "Your species fought impossible odds," Tikrik said. "You gave us courage to do the same. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Jiwoo shook her head. You owe us nothing. We just did what anyone would do. We fought for our freedom. Most species surrendered when the Drazen arrived, Tikrik replied. Most accepted slavery rather than risk extinction. You chose differently. That choice changed everything. Similar delegations arrived from other freed species. The Tarvans, who looked like walking trees made of crystal. The Belthari, aquatic beings who wore pressure suits to survive in Earth's atmosphere. Each one brought stories of their own uprisings, their own sacrifices. Yuna Choi found herself in high demand. Other species wanted her knowledge, her ability to turn civilian technology into weapons. She started teaching engineers from a dozen different worlds how to fight asymmetrically, how to turn industrial equipment into instruments of liberation. The Drazen always had better ships, Yuna explained to a class of alien engineers. But they thought like warriors. They never imagined miners and cargo haulers could become weapons. That blindness was their weakness. The coalition of free worlds grew stronger. Former vassals shared their technology with each other. Some had advanced shields. Others had better engines. The humans contributed their expertise in guerrilla warfare and creative weapon design. Together they were becoming a force that could stand against the Empire. Meanwhile, Hyeon Kim's intelligence network expanded across the galaxy. He made contact with resistance movements still trapped in Drazen territory, smuggled weapons and information to them, coordinated uprisings to keep the Empire off balance. The Drazen are in chaos, Hyun reported to Jiwoo 6 months after their victory. Half their territory is in open rebellion. The other half is under martial law. Their economy is collapsing because the vassal species did most of their actual work. They're discovering that enslaving everyone makes you dependent on those slaves. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. Good. Let them feel what it's like to be helpless. But she knew the Drazen weren't finished. A wounded empire was still dangerous. They still had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. The war wasn't over. 1 year after the first battle, the Drazen sent a message to Earth. But this time it wasn't a demand for surrender. It was a request for negotiations. The Drazen diplomat who arrived was not Ambassador Velthar, who had delivered the original ultimatum. This was someone different, someone who looked tired and desperate. Her name was Kelvara, and she spoke with far less arrogance than her predecessor. The Imperium acknowledges that the war has become untenable, Kelvara said. She sat across a table from Admiral Jiwoo, surrounded by diplomats from Earth and the Coalition. We propose a ceasefire. Recognition of the independence of species who have already broken away. In exchange, the remaining empire maintains its current borders and is left in peace. Jiwoo looked at the alien diplomat coldly. You arrived at our planet with 5 ships and demanded we become your slaves. When we refused, you came back with 800 ships to destroy us. Now you want peace because you're losing. Yes, Kelvara said simply. We were wrong. We underestimated you. We underestimated the consequences of our actions. The Empire is dying. This war is bleeding us to death. Please let it end. Jiwoo looked around the table at representatives from the Coalition. The Kelrosian commander Tikrik, the Tarvan elder whose name translated as Singing Stone, the Belthari admiral who called herself Wave Dancer, all species who had suffered under Drazen rule. What do you think? Jiwoo asked them. Tikrik spoke first. They enslaved my people for 2,000 years. Part of me wants to see their empire burn to ash. But continuing this war will cost millions more lives. If they're willing to let us be free, truly free, perhaps that's enough. Singing Stone agreed. Revenge is satisfying but expensive. We have our freedom now. That's what we fought for. Wave Dancer was less forgiving. How do we know they won't rebuild their strength and attack again in 50 years? 100? It was a fair question. Jiwoo thought about it carefully. Then she turned to Kelvara. We'll consider your ceasefire on several conditions. First, all vassal species are granted immediate independence. No exceptions. Second, the Drazen Empire agrees to pay reparations to species you've enslaved. Third, any species that wants to join the coalition of free worlds is allowed to do so without interference. And fourth, we establish a mutual defense pact. If you ever threaten any coalition member again, all of us respond together. Kelvara was quiet for a long moment. These terms would reduce the empire to a fraction of its former size. The proud Drazen would be humbled permanently, but she also knew they had no choice. I will take your terms to the Imperial Council, she said finally. I believe they will agree. 3 months later, the Treaty of Earth was signed. The Drazen Empire, which had ruled 400 star systems for 10,000 years, was reduced to 73. The rest became independent or joined the coalition. The galaxy had changed forever, and it had all started because one species refused to kneel. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Jiwoo Park retired. She was 60 years old and had earned her rest. At the ceremony, representatives from dozens of species came to honor her. A new class of carriers was being launched, built with combined coalition technology. They were named the Minho class, after the captain who had given his life in the first battle. Each ship's dedication plaque read, "They asked us to surrender. We answered with warships." Yuna Choi had become the coalition's chief of weapons development. She worked with the brightest minds from 20 species, creating defensive technologies to ensure no one could be enslaved again. Dr. Suji Yoon was appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Liberation Council, as the coalition was now officially called. She spent her days helping newly freed species adjust to independence, sharing humanity's experience. Commander Hyun Kim ran the Coalition Intelligence Service. His network of agents spanned the galaxy, always watching for threats, always ready to sound the alarm if anyone tried to conquer others again. The 4 surviving warships from Earth's original defense fleet were preserved as museums. Children from dozens species visited them, walking the decks where humans had made their desperate stand, learning about the battle that changed the galaxy. On Earth, people went back to their normal lives. The war became history, taught in schools but no longer an immediate threat. Humanity had reached for the stars and found monsters, but they had also found allies, friends, and proof that courage could overcome impossible odds. The Drazen Empire still existed, diminished but not destroyed. Some in the coalition wanted to finish them off completely, but others argued that leaving them alive served as a reminder that no empire lasts forever, that even the mightiest can fall when people refuse to accept tyranny. 10 years after the war, on the anniversary of the first battle, Admiral Jiwoo Park stood at a memorial on the moon. It listed the names of all who died defending Earth.